want to introduce Deb and Karen, who are with the West Seattle Blockwatch Captains Network, and let them say just a couple of words about their organization.
Yeah, great, Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Berge with the West Seattle Blockwatch Captains Network, and we're really happy to be here tonight to be co-sponsoring this because we wanted West Seattle Blockwatch Captains in particular to have an opportunity to ask questions of the new police chief. And for those of you who don't know anything about our org, you can find a lot on our website, which is on the sign right there. And we also have little mini flyers that you can pick up after the meeting if you're interested. But our role is to try to empower block captains and empower the community by providing opportunities for the block captains to network with each other and learn from each other. And we bring in speakers all the time, and we bring in, we talk about different topics with the goal of becoming more and more informed and more of a community. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back to Pete. But if you are interested in learning more about our org, please take a look at our website, and please join us. We meet monthly, most fourth Tuesdays.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to say a few words to start us off? Then we'll jump into the questions.
Great, well, thank you. I know I've had the opportunity to meet many of you here in West Seattle at different events. I know there were some events during the summer and the fall that I attended, so but it's great to come together collectively as a group. Actually, I'll stand up if people in the back want to. Just to make sure. If you can't hear me down back, just let me know. So I really appreciate the fact that all of you came here to engage this evening. Captain Wilski explained to me that the community here is very engaged, which is fantastic. I mean, the only way, we don't want to dictate the agenda, we really want to hear from you. So when I first arrived here during the summer as the new police chief, I said, look, I am not going to dictate the community policing agenda from headquarters. I think we need to build it from the bottom up. We need to hear from people living and working in our neighborhoods to determine what their priorities are. I mean, we're all concerned about Part 1 crime. We're concerned about guns and gangs and drugs. But there are also quality of life issues in all of your neighborhoods that are unique to each neighborhood. You know, some people are really concerned about car prowls and car thefts. You know, others are concerned about low-level drug dealing. You know, others are concerned about speeding and traffic and pedestrian safety. So there are unique issues facing each neighborhood. So I said, look, we're going to fight crime across the city. We're going to fight Part 1 crime. But at the same time, we want to work with our communities, with the individual neighborhoods, to find out what their unique problems are so that we can work with the community on solutions to those problems. I have to tell you that your captain was the first one to step up, to get out there, to talk to many of you, and I really appreciate the feedback you gave him. And I was stunned when he came walking into headquarters with his binder with the draft of his first draft of all the community policing plans. You know, some of the other captains in the city were saying, you want us to do what? And Captain Wilski already had the binder and was presenting it to me. So he was really ahead of the curve. So I thank you for that, Steve, and I wanted to make sure. So when I came through the door, I said, look, you know, it's going to take me a while to get to know this place, but right away I said we need to at least set out some priorities there. And number one is to deal with the consent decree. This department's been under a federally mandated consent decree for the last 2 years, and it will continue for the foreseeable future until the Seattle Police Department reforms and implements all of the requirements of the consent decree that was negotiated with the Department of Justice. I happen to have a significant amount of experience with consent decrees. I first worked with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division in 1999 on the first consent decree case. It was a New Jersey State Police case, and I was the expert witness for the Department of Justice that actually led to the development of that consent decree. Before I arrived here, I was also the monitor on a consent decree in East Haven, Connecticut. So it's really important work. We need to not only tick the boxes and get the requirements done, but we need to drive the cultural reform. We need to realize the true spirit of this consent decree. If the Seattle Police Department and the community so that we can move forward together. And if you look at the monitor's last report, his last 6-month report, he, of course, it's his role to hold our feet to the fire and make sure that we get this done. So he points out areas of concern, but he acknowledged that we're really trying hard to move forward with the spirit and reform, and to get this project done. So that's our #1 priority. We also have to deal with crime and disorder. And crime, I said when I first arrived, I think it was in August, I said to some of the captains, I said, what's the story? How are we looking on Part 1 crime? And some of them said, oh, pretty good, we think. But we weren't really using data. We weren't using timely and accurate statistics to determine just how we were doing on crime in our neighborhoods in the city. So we, since then, have every 2 weeks now, we have a meeting at headquarters. We call it CSTAT, where we take timely and accurate information and we do maps to show exactly where our crime trends are, what's happening, so we can deploy resources more effectively and efficiently. I'm pleased to say that we had a significant uptick in things like car prowls and car thefts. Most of the increases in crime last year related to property crime. But with this more focused approach on hotspot locations, prolific offenders, and repeat victims, we've really been able to drive crime down. The trajectory now is going in the right direction, and we're seeing decreases in crime. But it's all because we're trying to use a more focused approach to this. It's data-driven, but it also focuses on locations, prolific offenders, and victims. I'll give you an example of the victims issue. We saw a significant increase in domestic violence crime. It appeared that domestic violence was increasing. So we went out and we started to work with the Seattle Housing Authority on a pilot project. And we went out to locations, housing authority properties, where we saw concerns about the number of domestic violence incidents, and we were able to work closely with in counseling some of the victims and trying to be there for them and with them to prevent repeat occurrences. And we've seen that particular pilot program has been a good success. So we've seen, especially in those housing authority facilities, we've seen a significant decrease in repeat victimization. So we're going to continue focusing on hotspot locations, prolific offenders. And there's some really good police work going on out there. I mean, just to give you an example, there was a gang feud that was going on just around the end of the year, the last few weeks of the year, and it culminated with a murder on Christmas Eve in the South Precinct. And then on New Year's Eve, there was a New Year's Eve murder. And then later that night, we had the officer-involved shooting. I'm sure you saw that in the news, where the officers had stopped a man. They were questioning him, and all of a sudden a car came rolling by. 2 cars came rolling by. It was like a rolling gun battle, and the officers inadvertently, ended up in the middle of that gun battle. Well, I'm pleased to say that we arrested 2 people for the homicide of New Year's Eve. We arrested 4 people for drive-by shootings that occurred in the weeks prior to that homicide. And today we're able to arrest one of the people involved in the officer-involved shooting that happened on New Year's Eve. So I just want people to know that the gang unit, the robbery unit, the homicide unit, and the regular patrols are really trying to harness resources to focus, especially in these the shootings, the drive-by shootings, and the violent crimes. We also have significant concerns about issues downtown. I've heard a lot of people refer to the challenges downtown as downtown disorder. Well, downtown disorder includes everything from people who are really in need, people who are homeless, who need services, who are having they're in dire economic straits, to people who are in crisis, who really need help, who need services, and then you have drug dealers and more serious criminals who are preying on all of them and others downtown. So, but there are a lot of concerns that have been expressed by people living and working and visiting downtown. In fact, I was getting complaints day in and day out from people nearly every day by email and other other methods. I was getting phone calls, emails, letters about the downtown stuff. We have actually started a pilot program. It's called the Neighborhood Response Team, and we have an officer, Scott Moss, he's a sergeant, and 6 officers, and their job is to go out there and engage with people and see if we can offer them services and help them. I mean, we don't want to, enforcement is a last resort. Prevention and intervention are #1 priorities. If we can get people the services they need, then that's our preference. And so Scott Moss and his team, their job is to go out there, engage with folks, try to get them the services they need. But the police department, as you know, and we can only do so much when it comes to homelessness and people in crisis. So we're working very closely with Kate Johnson, deputy mayor, and other folks from the mayor's office to try to bring a multidisciplinary approach to this. So that's a work in progress. In fact, I'm spending most of the day on Saturday with the mayor and his team, and we're going to have a kind of a summit to determine what some of the other strategies are that we can apply to downtown. But that's downtown. This is West Seattle. I really want to hear more about the challenges you're facing here. The captain's been good about keeping me apprised of things. I know concerned about some of the robberies that have happened, particularly of school-age children recently in the community. And I know we have a lot of both plainclothes and uniform resources assigned to that right now. But I do want to hear about the other challenges you face here. So I won't go on for any longer here. I think it's best to listen to you and answer some of these questions. And really, I just want to say again that the only way we can address your concerns is to engage, in a constructive way. And I really appreciate the fact you've taken time to come here tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so to start off with, we've got 2 questions that hit on the topic that you just discussed, and I was wondering, these questions, I'm wondering if you could go into a little more detail about what the police, what Seattle police are doing with this string of robberies that we've had. It's not only, in the Junction area, but also kids on their way to school that are good. And so,
would that be okay if I address that one?
Absolutely.
Because we had 2 questions that were on that issue.
As everybody knows, we've had a series of robberies involving school-age children as the victims. This runs from middle school up to high school. We've had a couple of other associated, or maybe associated robberies involving adult victims, but the ones that I'm most concerned about are the ones involving the school-age victims. So this is kind of how we're going forward with this. For me, this is now the highest priority I have of anything that I'm doing. Okay, 7 days a week, I check on this multiple times a day, 7 days a week. I get a phone call 24 hours a day if we have any specific updates or significant updates, or if we have one occur. So understand, I've got young kids too. This is the highest priority I have of anything that I'm working on right now within the precinct. Okay, and it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for me. I check on it 7 days a week wherever I am. We're bringing in, I've got a bulletin that we've created. Every time we get a new piece of information, it's added to that bulletin, and every officer in the precinct gets that bulletin. The on-duty officers are expected to be in the area. We have kind of 2 generalized areas. It's not enough to really call it a pattern, but we have an area around one of the high schools and around one of the middle schools. That information goes to every officer, and they're expected during times when the kids are going to and from school. The on-duty officer should be there if they're not on a call. In addition to this, I'm bringing in as many officers as I can. There's no budget on this as far as I'm concerned. I'm bringing in as many officers as I can to work specifically on this detail. They're not responsible for 911 calls. Their sole job is to work on this problem for me. We've had a number of, in some of the community meetings, especially the North Delbridge meeting, there's been concerns voiced about the stairwells that go up from Delbridge. We've gotten, previously to this, we've gotten actually the sight lines, we've got all the brush cut back by SDOT on 4 of the stairwells. Through this series, we've identified an additional stairwell, and that should be cut back to increase the sight lines by Friday. Okay, and that's the one there at Delbridge and Holden. Again, CPT, ACT, all the officers that I have are focusing on this problem right now. One of the things we're also doing is trying to get out safety information. We did a safety presentation with Mark Solomon at the Block Watch Captains. That same presentation's been pushed out to the schools, and anyone who wants it, I will give that information as well. It's safety tips for the kids. What you do if this occurs. It's just a phone. Don't fight for it. Just give it to the person. A lot of times, one of the problems we're running into is the delay in reporting because, again, they're young kids. They don't know what to do. So it's, okay, go to a nearby business and call. So they don't know how to report it to us. This is all within that safety presentation. I'll make it available to anybody who wants it. And it's already gone to all the area schools. And then we're getting it out through the Block Watch and all the community meetings that we go to. One of the other things we're looking at doing, as everybody knows, people who commit these kind of crimes don't just do them in Seattle. We're constantly exchanging now information with King County Sheriff. Again, we're trying to get any information to see if maybe the same people that are doing the robberies on our folks, on our kids, are doing them out in county. So again, we're looking anywhere that we can get for information that would lead to identifying and arresting these folks. So, like I said, I've got young kids too. This is the highest priority that I have. I know it's a super priority for you, but realize 7 days a week I'm thinking about this. I get updated every day, and if anything occurs, I get a phone call 24 hours a day. Okay?
Question?
So if you have a question, if you'll write it down on a piece of paper.
I was just going to follow up on that if you don't mind. So I think the captain is obviously doing all the right things, but I want to mention that, so this is where we apply some of our crime analysts and we apply our analytics. So we had for instance, we had a rash of robberies in the South Precinct in August, September. In that time frame, we saw a significant increase in robberies. We were able to take a look at it by not only location, but day of the week, hour of the day, different patterns, and we were able to deploy our resources accordingly. And within a month, we had like a 39% decrease in the number of robberies there. So these more focused strategies do work, but best case, we'll find out who's doing this. There's no question that, it's probably an individual or group of individuals. And so we have both plainclothes and uniform resources assigned to it.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of pick questions here. So since you have come to Seattle and right before that, there's been a great deal of change and turnover in personnel in the precincts. And so this person wants to know what can be done to, what are your plans to ensure more stability within the precincts so that the command staff at each of the precincts, really gets a more intimate knowledge of the community that they're serving there.
And I think that's, I'll stand up again, I just feel, I don't speak as loudly as Captain Wilski says. Everybody's talking about, I go out to a lot of the precincts and we need more continuity. To be honest with you, the command staff at headquarters needs more continuity too. But when I arrived, I said, I need to get to know these people. I'm going to definitely bring in some more people from the outside to the Seattle PD into leadership positions. But I said I also need to get to know the people in current leadership positions to determine, who has what strengths and who has what weaknesses, and to shuffle the deck accordingly. My hope right now, I went out and advertised for the 5 assistant chief positions and told the existing assistant chiefs that they can reapply for their jobs if they'd like. Some they're wonderful people. Some of them are very talented. Some very committed. But the important thing is that we get the best possible leadership team in place at the command level at headquarters, and then that the people at headquarters, especially the new operations chief, will have the opportunity to get the best possible people in place at the precinct level. Unless you want to tell me something different tonight, and I don't want to put anybody on the spot, I've only received very favorable feedback about the leadership in this precinct to date. So, you can let me know if you have any concerns, but, within the coming weeks or maybe the next month, I'll be selecting the senior leadership team for the department. And at the end of the day, we want to get the right people in place in the precincts as well. There's nothing more important than the day-to-day uniformed police officers who patrol the beats and respond to the calls for service in your neighborhoods. We have a lot of specialized units out there too that we can bring, we can bring additional resources to bear when we have a challenge. But I've always said that the patrol operation is the lifeblood of any police department, and we need to get that right first. So it's a work in progress, so thank you for your patience, but we'll have a new command team in place within the next month, and then we'll work on the precinct leadership from there.
Okay.
And I want continuity too. I think it's important to have continuity.
So the next phrase says, I know the police department has made some progress in addressing the very frightening and challenging issue of dealing with citizens who suffer mental illness. Can you make further training of our police in intervening with these sufferers a top priority?
Yeah, it's not only a top priority for me, but it's a top priority in the consent decree. So so we have crisis intervention training now that's been developed over the course of the last couple of years. So for instance, all of our officers have received the basic 8-hour crisis intervention training. I went to it myself at the academy down in Burien, and I sat through it, and it was offered by a mental health professional. It was incredibly, I couldn't believe how much I learned in that 8 hours. I know very good, I learned a lot about people in crisis and how to deal with how to assess a situation, how to deal with different types of crisis situations, all about de-escalation as opposed to escalation. I thought it was a very well done program. It was organized by the State Training Commission, and as I said, offered by a mental health professional. So everybody has to receive that at the very least. Then there's a 40-hour course, a more sophisticated course. It's a level 2 course that several of our officers have gone to, and then there's a supervisor's course as well. So there are 3 different levels of crisis intervention training now, and we're really trying to get as many people through that as quickly as possible, because it absolutely has to be a top priority for us. In addition to that, there's a crisis intervention committee now, the CIC, that was established, and I just had a meeting with it's a multidisciplinary committee that represents not just police, but other city agencies, other service providers, and we all met together in the fall and committed to governance and structure and all of that. And I said that the police department absolutely will make whatever resources we need available. We have a lieutenant now who is overseeing the crisis intervention initiatives. We have a sergeant working full-time on it. We have crisis response teams where we have police officers go out side by side and work in partnership with mental health professionals and try to do interventions of people. I'll tell you, we need to give them more resources, because one of the CRT officers came to me, introduced himself to me, and introduced me to his partner, who's a mental health professional. And I said, wow, you're doing such important work out there. You're trying to get people the services they need. And he said, yeah, Chief, he said, the challenge is that right now we have 3 teams, and we expect to have 6,000 interventions this year, 6,000 contacts. So obviously we need to figure out how to scale this so we can get better services and more services to people in need out there. But please know that it is a priority. And
Okay,
the-
I can't wait on that because it's not a priority. The Seattle Police have killed several mentally ill people, including Larry Andrew Flynn last July in Gasworks Park. He was mentally ill, he had a broken bottle, he was tased, shot numerous times by Seattle Police. He's being kept very low on the low QT, but activists know about it. You killed Jackson Kiwanton, a mentally ill Native youth 2 years ago, with 3 guys with rifles, and he had a bar about this big. He killed a man in his 70s out of the South End, Henry Lee Jr., that called in on his special thing that he had problems with his dementia, and he needed help, and 2 cops blew him away on his front step. So don't, this is, I'm not gonna listen to this, because this is all lies about the history of the Seattle Police Department. You've had people for I've been working on this for 20 years. Over those 20 years, all kinds of people have gone to the Seattle Police Department. So that's not the problem. The problem is that the police are brutalizers. They're brutalizers of the people, keeping them down, murdering people. We need to stop the police from murdering people. You are not the answer. You are not the answer.
How long has she been in
These are not
place?
heroes.
How long has she been in place?
Yeah, she just got here.
She just got here.
So the police are still gonna kill people now? Who's in fucking?
She's a champ. Okay, why are you
Okay,
here?
let's
Do you
get,
complain?
so I think the point is made.
Because
So
the
let's
police,
get back to.
yeah, these are good questions, sir. Don't just silence me because you don't wanna hear
Are
it.
you gonna call 911 when you're in trouble?
To stop it.
No, because I don't wanna fucking die. I don't wanna die. I don't wanna get killed by a fucking cop.
Oh, okay. So they're not gonna protect you at all.
I don't need protection from the police. I don't need protection from the
Right.
police.
Okay, so our next-
It's gonna be a national shutdown again.
our next
No,
question-
this is usual. There's a
our
meeting
next
in
question that we
Atlanta.
have-
People in Fox Creek.
The next question that we have-
If people care about police brutality, check out the Stop Mass Incarceration.
Okay, you made your point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not gonna listen to the lies.
So the next question,
Just sit in your white
question
privilege.
we have,
Just go ahead and sit in
now
your
I
white privilege.
volunteered at West
Oh,
Seattle
yeah.
Food Bank,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
see people hanging out
As soon as I
doing
mention
stuff
white
they
privilege,
shouldn't be
I mean,
doing.
I want to
Also
bring you this. We'd
hanging
like to
out
hear
for hours
this.
at bus stops
Okay.
around there,
Have fun
even
your
workers
privilege.
don't feel safe. What can be done to make neighbors feel safe at bus stops?
We didn't have a question at all.
Okay,
We
so,
hear you.
it says now,
Stand up so we can hear
it
you.
says now I volunteer at the West Seattle Food Bank, and I see people hanging out doing stuff that they shouldn't be doing. Also hanging out for hours at the bus stop around there, even workers don't feel safe. What can you do to make us feel safe at bus stops?
I could probably.
Well, that's obviously one of the quality of life issues I was talking about before. It's not only one crime in that instance. And, fear of crime is as bad as crime itself. And so that's, one of the issues that I assume is being covered in the community policing plan.
Yeah, what we've actually talked about, that's actually within the High Point community. And it started with a stabbing that occurred about a month ago in the mini mart, the convenience store there on the corner. One of the things that with the Highline community is, or the High Point community is, this actually kind of brought people together so that we were actually able to develop a neighborhood plan for them. Actually, our first meeting is coming up here in a few days. But we're not waiting for that plan to be developed. What we worked on so far, I've got 2 CPT officers assigned to this. We're working with City Light to improve or to upgrade all the lighting there. We're working with the convenience store owner. He's actually, to be honest with you, he's kind of afraid of the people there. And it's kind of interfered with his ability to kind of work with us. He's working with us now. We're getting a group together to try to assist him with some of the septet issues around his business. Walgreens working with us. We're talking with the food bank and some other area businesses that have interest in getting security cameras, private security cameras that are their security cameras. So like I said, the High Point, the SHA group is involved in this. We're getting a lot of the business owners and some of the residents there. As everybody knows, we have the residences there. But Metro's working with us on the bus stop. We're trying to get lighting installed there. We're trying to upgrade the lighting there. SEPT to make it less attractive. So we're going to get rid of all those bushes and everything that kind of interfere with people, with officers driving by and being able to look inside. And then, like I said, the convenience store owner, I understand his concerns, and we're trying to address those to give him a safe environment for him to run his business in. But security cameras, we're getting rid of the phone booth. We're trying to do all those things, and we're not waiting for the neighborhood plan to get those done. We're actually going forward with that.
It looked like there were going to be something going down tonight because there was 12 people there standing out side, giggling and passing around joints and whatnot. Like they were getting ready to rob somebody. Because I'm from New York and I see this.
Okay,
What kind of people?
Yeah, what do they look like?
It doesn't matter what they look like, they were just
I agree.
Okay,
a
so,
bunch of troublemakers.
so
All nationalities.
along that same line, there's a question about safety in our parks. It says, what can you do to make Lincoln Park safer to park while enjoying the park? I go there, I fear my car will be broken into.
again, yeah, Lincoln Park, it's had a history of car problems. Two things. Using officers to do observation in there to see if we can catch the folks that are doing the car prowls. Well, one thing, and we put the information out through the different community meetings, please don't leave valuable items on the seats of your cars. If you have something, you have a laptop, you have a camera, something, stop a few blocks away, get it, put it in the trunk. A car prowl takes about 10 seconds to occur. Somebody comes up, breaks your window, grabs something, and they're gone. It's a very difficult crime to catch because it's 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and they're gone. So that's the one thing. Put out the information. Please don't leave valuable items in the cars. When they're car prowling or when they're prowling cars, they're not stealing stereos or things like that take a while. They're breaking the window, grab something that's on the seat, and then they're gone. So if you're parking in Lincoln Park, if you have a laptop or a camera or something of value, stop 4 or 5, 6 blocks away, put it in the trunk, then you pull up, park your car, and you're gone. People will walk by. If there's not something of value in your car, you're going to come back and the car's still going to be there. Okay?
Okay, so this next question is, does the Southwest Precinct have a community liaison to work with the Somali families to explain how they can talk to their teenagers in reference to youth gangs and how to view police as friends and someone to trust and go to?
I've spent a considerable amount of time with the East African community since I've been here. Been to a lot of events, East African events, and East African youth events. And, that population is growing. And when we say East African, of course, there's so many different nationalities that fall under that umbrella. We're in the process of hiring an East African liaison for the police department. In fact, we received over 200 applications for that job. So the interviews are taking place now, and hopefully that person will be on board soon. But again, it's not just going to be one person. We need to work together collectively with other services, with other providers, in order to come up with, strategies. Not only, I think we need to really spend more time thinking about more services for our kids in the community. I talked before about prevention and intervention. Throughout my police career, when I was in Boston, we had police officers assigned to over 800 youth programs in the city. Trying to get kids job skills, better educational opportunities, better program opportunities, to keep them on track.
Is that what the new jail is supposed to do?
No, you know what? Keep them out of jail. I want to keep them out of jail. And
Then why build a new one? Just tear the old one down. We don't need a new
Let her
youth
answer
jail.
the question first.
I don't care.
I don't
care. The new youth jail is going to systematically oppress people. That is not okay.
That's right.
How can you
That's
sit here in your seats and allow that? Oh, you're going to shush me because you sit in your privilege. I don't care.
What the questions were.
We're here to listen to
That's
her.
not on the question.
Oh, and you're just going to allow people to die and get systematically oppressed in prisons.
Well, it's interesting you say that because, while the police department doesn't build jails or control the prisons, I used to work in a role where I was responsible for all the prisons in Massachusetts, and I convinced people there to invest in reentry programs, to invest in prevention and intervention programs, to invest in literacy skills, substance abuse treatment, job skills, so that people who made mistakes can have a second chance and live more productive lives. So, I think that, the police are often at the end of failed systems, and you're right, we need to try to improve our system so that kids have more opportunities and don't end up in jails and in other types of services. We prefer to work with them and keep them on the right track.
Okay. Are there any plans to add walking patrols in West Seattle?
I'd like to add more walking beats across the city, to be honest with you. So But again, we have finite resources. And I often make the comparison, I came from Boston, the city the same size in terms of population, very similar in size. Actually, Seattle has a double the footprint geographically, and in Boston we have between 800 and 1,000 more police. So, it just goes to show that here in Seattle, we don't have the percentage of police that they do in many other major cities across the country. So we're doing a resource allocation study. Mayor Murray already committed to, I believe in his campaign, he committed to 100 new officers during his term in office. And so that goes without saying. We're in the process of trying to accelerate recruitment and hiring of those officers. But we're also doing a resource allocation study that takes lots of factors into consideration. Calls for service, crime rate, demographics, geography, everything, to determine scientifically how many cops we need here, so we're not just guessing. But to the greatest extent possible, again, we have finite dollars. I'm all for emphasis patrols, walking beats, and trying to get police officers to actually engage and establish relationships with people working and living in our neighborhoods.
Just so everybody knows, we started the pilot program, bicycle program, last summer. It was very successful. We're continuing that on, and we'll expand it as we get the staffing. I do have to maintain a safe staffing level for patrol, but the bicycle program, we have 2 that are full-time assigned. I hope to expand that both days and nights before summer.
And just as a reminder, if other questions have come to your mind, make sure and write them down on the cards and bring them forward, or pass them forward.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say something really quick.
My neighbor said
I want to situate this meeting. I want to situate this meeting in the fact that 12-year-old Tamir Rice in Cleveland, gunned down by police. Okay, let me finish. Eric Garner, choked to death on video for everyone knowing what he said. And Isaac O'Cap, by your police officer, Larry Longley. Do people know this? Right here in West Seattle. Beaten bloody when he was handcuffed. Why did they arrest him in Westwood Village? Because he had too many keys hanging from his waist.
What's the question?
So I'm situating this meeting, and this is what the police are doing, okay? Every 28 hours, another black man murdered by the police. There's been officers. No, I'm going to finish what I have to say. I'm going to finish what I have to say. Unarmed. There's now come out, okay, that there have now been more black men murdered by the police than were lynched during the worst years of lynching. This is something that people know it's true. People should look it up. And we're here to give notice that on April 14th, this movement to end police murder is not going to go away. We're not going to go away. April 14th, a national shutdown is going to be happening in this country. And we're here to put the West Seattle police on notice. And the Seattle Police Department on notice. This weekend, people are coming from all over the country.
So,
They